All right. Today is a very special segment, the first of these, of what will probably be many. It's a brand new segment. I haven't got a clever name for it yet, but it is created to celebrate anniversaries of masterful works of art and just incredible films. And I cannot think of a better film to kick this off. I don't think. The film that we're going to be talking about came out in 1975, today, in 1975, June 20th. It is credited for inspiring so many filmmakers, even as recently as inspiring the director of Godzilla Minus One. And you probably noticed some references to this film in Godzilla Minus One. When this film came out, the director and one of his closest friends, who was Martin Scorsese at the time, drove to one of the theaters where it was showing and noticed the director of this movie was actually somewhat concerned how it was going to play out with audiences. And when they got to the theater, huge lines stretching out of the theater around the block, essentially busting the block itself. Because there were so many people in line, and since it busted the block, we were given the term blockbuster. This is considered to be the birth of what we now know as blockbuster films, and not the store, just summer blockbusters in general. This film has, like I said, inspired so many other directors. It is in my top 10 films of all time. It is masterfully done. The director was none other than Steven Spielberg, who was just coming off of the Sugarland Express at the time. This film is none other than the number one film that all of us remember the minute that we get in the ocean. It is Jaws. Again, this film came out in 1975 on June 20th. The story behind this film is an interesting one. Peter Benchley, who was the writer of the book that inspired the film itself, was actually, the way he tells it, he was going back and forth on what he wanted to name the book. The way he tells it, he had a bunch of titles that he wasn't necessarily drawn to, including words like Leviathan, and he ended up settling on Jaws, and one of the reasons being, according to him, is that it fit neatly on a book cover. It ended up taking off, initially making it into book club circles, and obviously becoming ultimately a script. And at the time, the original director that they had assigned to this particular film was not long after becoming the director, removed from the film due to the fact that he would not stop referring to the main antagonist as a whale. And he was a director that had stated multiple times that he loved the movie Moby Dick. So they got rid of that director, and turns out they ended up discovering the best one possible, I think, for this particular movie, which was Steven Spielberg. And like I said, he was just coming off of Sugarland Express. Spielberg came across the script and was immediately drawn to it just because of the name, is the way he puts it. He saw the title Jaws and was like, well, what are we talking about here? Are we talking about a movie about dentistry? He wasn't totally, he wasn't sure what this was even going to be about. And as he read the screenplay, he realized that he was pretty much in the best position out of anyone to make a film like this, because he had just gotten done making the movie prior to Sugarland Express, a made-for-TV movie known as Duel. And if you have not seen Duel, I would highly, 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 highly encourage you to see that film because it's a masterpiece as well. Now, the thing that's similar to the movie Duel is that in Duel, the main antagonist is a truck. Not a truck driver, a truck, obviously driven by a truck driver, but really the focus is on the truck itself. And it is chasing a man through California. Very similar to what Spielberg was going to have to do ultimately with Jaws. And he knew that as he read the screenplay. Peter Benchley had basically taken that screenplay, given it to Spielberg, given his blessing, do with it what you want to do with it. And Spielberg, right off the bat, noticed it wasn't quite where he wanted it. And he had added some things, but he also invited Carl Gottlieb in to help him write that particular screenplay that would ultimately become Jaws, which Carl Gottlieb was known at the time for the show The Odd Couple. So Gottlieb came in, helped write it, and it would ultimately become the film that we know it to be today. Gottlieb actually starred in some roles in that movie as well, just minor roles, and his specialty was kind of improvisation. There were numerous lines, especially according to Gottlieb himself, that were improvised in the movie. So pretty fascinating there. So Spielberg now has the script. He's getting ready to make this movie. Who's he going to get to star in it? And this might be surprising. It may not be. But for the really main three roles, played by Roy Scheider, Robert Shaw, and Richard Dreyfuss. Can't believe I almost blanked on that. For those main three roles, they weren't the first choice. Any of them. With Brody, Spielberg had seen an actor in Serpico that he wanted to pull into that role. And ultimately that didn't really work out, obviously, for whatever reason. Spielberg shortly, I believe it was probably weeks, maybe, I think is what I remember him saying. But prior to the filming beginning, was at a Hollywood party one night, and a guy came over and said, hey, I got to introduce you to this guy, Roy Scheider. So he met Scheider, he knew of Scheider, and Scheider puts it that as he came over, he heard them discussing the plot of the movie, and the piece that he heard was, yeah, we're going to have this shark, it's going to jump up onto a boat, and it's going to just decimate the boat and attack the people on said boat. And the way that Scheider puts it, he immediately thought to himself, these people are insane. He thought it was absolutely crazy to have that as part of a plot of a movie. But he was intrigued, and he heard Spielberg out, listened to what he was talking about, and Scheider finally asked him, well, where do I fit into this piece? Or where would I fit in to this particular film? And Spielberg says, you are Brody. You would be a perfect Brody. So that is the story of how Roy Scheider came about. Hooper, played by Richard Dreyfuss, was originally a character that Spielberg wanted played by, literally, as he puts it, any of the actors in The Last Picture Show, a film that he had seen, loved everybody in it, and he went down the line through each and every actor, and ultimately none of them could do the film or didn't want to necessarily do the film. So he remembered Dreyfuss being in American Graffiti, a film by his pal, George Lucas, that had come out, and he loved Dreyfuss in it. So spoke with him, and Dreyfuss said, this is more of a film that I would want to watch, but I don't think that I wouldn't be comfortable playing a lead role like that in this particular kind of film. So Dreyfuss ultimately says thanks, but no thanks. He had a film that was coming out not long after that meeting, and proceeded to watch himself in that movie, and thought he was absolutely terrible. And not only did he think he was absolutely terrible in the movie, he thought that was the end of his career. And so the way he puts it, went back and begged, hey, do you still have that role open for Hooper? I'd love to take it. And thus, Richard Dreyfuss became Hooper. The story with Quint, yet again, like I said, not the first choice. But Spielberg did have Shaw referred to him after, he had done The Sting, which is another fantastic movie with Paul Newman, Robert Redford, but Robert Shaw was fantastic in it. And ultimately, that, along with some of Shaw's other roles, are what caused Spielberg to choose him as Quint. In terms of Ellen Brody, she was actually the first actor cast, according to Spielberg, because he had seen her in a TV film and had absolutely loved her role in it, had loved her acting in it, and he knew this is who I want as Brody's wife. Additionally, Mayor Vaughn, played by Murray Hamilton, Spielberg had always wanted to work with him. He references, when he talks about Murray Hamilton, seeing films like The Graduate, and just loved him in his roles. And that's ultimately how Mayor Vaughn came about. So those are kind of your big key players in the film, and that's the story behind how they came about. It's a miracle that we even have this movie. The shark was breaking down left and right. Probably worked a quarter of the time. Richard Dreyfuss puts it as, we'd always just hear, the shark's broken. And that just became kind of the norm on set. The story goes that the Screen Actors Guild had a contract, I believe it was a contract, that was coming up to be done And the Screen Actors, the way I understand it, the Screen Actors Guild um, said that films had to be done. I believe it was by June 30th. Is if I'm remembering correctly, and Spielberg in April was like, we barely have a script. How are we going to make this happen? Uh, Interestingly enough, Spielberg was no rookie on that. Duel he had done, I believe, in like 12, 14 days, um, and done it superbly. And in fact, Duel, interestingly enough, is how he was kind of discovered by um, George Lucas, um, Francis Ford Coppola at the time. Um, so all these pieces, how they just work together, is just it's amazing. But yes, the shark was broken most of the time, and ultimately, uh, it really kind of worked out in Spielberg's favor. And the reason that it worked out in Spielberg's favor is the way that he puts it. Um, you know, the film is scarier uh, because of the fact that you can't see the antagonist. You can't see the monster up until the last really about 30 minutes of the movie. At times, you can kind of see through the water a little bit, but really you're not facing that monster until much, much later on in the movie, and it made it that much more suspenseful, that much more thrilling. Um, so that ended up working out as well. The film was primarily filmed, I believe, in Martha's Vineyard. Spielberg refused to use a set um, to film the movie. He wanted it on the water. It was a film about being out in the elements, on the ocean, with its apex predator. And he wanted it filmed where it would have actually taken place. And so that's what he did. And that introduced a whole other slew of challenges, namely with the camera and how, it was going to move. The lighting, he had no idea, and he said this in documentaries, he had no idea how the lighting would ultimately impact color, the color of the water. And if that's changing hour by hour, that can impact film tremendously. Specific scenes. So, just a lot of pieces to this movie that ultimately came together to give us, in my opinion, like I said, for me, it is in my top 10 films of all time. It's done to perfection. Everything from plot to theme to acting to writing to editing to music, especially music, is just done perfectly. So this has been just kind of the first one of these that I plan on doing for this particular segment. You've seen my actual movie reviews while they're still in theaters. I call that first watch because it is my first watch of said film. So that segment exists. But now what I want to do is kind of also start honoring films on their anniversaries, especially groundbreaking films. So hopefully you've seen Jaws. If you haven't, take this as your sign that you need to find it streaming somewhere, buy it digitally, order a copy of it. You will consistently hear me talk about the importance of physical media. When you buy a movie, you own it. It is yours. There's no chance of um, distribution rights or um, for instance, with Apple, I know if you buy a movie digitally, if for any reason uh, your card, this is just what I've noticed, if you need to update your card information, you will not have access to the digital copy until you do that. Now, in the whole scheme of things, is that really a big deal? Maybe not. Maybe not. But what I don't like is the fact that I've purchased something and then it can be taken away. So to me, that's somewhat scary. So take that for what it's worth. There's also, numerous other instances where you could lose access to digital media. Having physical media means you have a copy of the films that you love. So I cannot encourage you enough to, when you have a movie that you adore, buy it physically. Get a copy of it. Just to be honest, there's something special about being able to hold a physical copy of something that you really like. So, anyway, that's my soapbox on physical media. There's numerous articles out there about why you should invest in physical media. I would encourage you to look those up, read them, because there's very good points in it. Anyway, find this movie if you have not watched it. I cannot imagine anyone watching this video has not seen the movie Jaws. But if you haven't, first of all, no judgment. Let me say you're in for a treat. You're in for an absolute masterpiece, and I can't think of a better time of the year to watch this movie. It's summer, it's hot outside, people are making trips to the beach. Obviously, it scared a bunch of people at the time, which is a whole other thing. It actually led to a lot of killing of sharks and really led to them becoming misunderstood creatures to the point of it was leading to potential endangerment of the species. And in fact, Peter Benchley said that his greatest regret was even writing the book. And he went on to do numerous documentaries about shark conservation, invested a lot of his time and effort into that. Obviously, this is a thriller. It is suspenseful, but it's a masterpiece. That's all there is to it. This is a masterclass in filmmaking. It's a masterclass in acting. It's a masterclass in writing, editing, music, everything about it. Everything about this is a 10 out of 10. It's incredible. So, do yourself a favor, watch it. If you've already seen it, hey, you know what? No judgment. I'm somebody, I will serial watch movies, and that's perfectly okay. There's movies that I've watched back to back to back to back. Just this year alone, The Thing has been one of those. And you know what? I've only done a text review, so maybe I need to do a video review of it. But I've probably watched The Thing maybe 20 times this year, which is insane. But it's that good of a movie. This is one of those two. So, this is, again, 49th anniversary. We're coming up next year on the 50th. And as you can see on this box, it was nominated for 4 Academy Awards, including Best Picture in 1975. The movie is Jaws. The director is Spielberg. The writer is Peter Benchley. Do yourself a favor. And Carl Gottlieb. Carl Gottlieb and Peter Benchley are the writers, along with Spielberg did some of the writing too. But do yourself a favor. Watch it if you hadn't seen it. If you have, watch it again because you know you love it. It's a fantastic film. And that's it.